Hi, it's the Carter Man. Happy Wednesday. Those who follow the daily update, my private personal message to you that comes out every day, know that I rarely devote the daily update to just one video. Sometimes we do the postcast update, which is three videos, which were social media posts from the previous week. Um, and occasionally I'll throw in one of my videos with other videos I'm presenting to you, but very rarely, other than when we do a podcast, do I devote the entire attention of one of our daily updates to a video commentary of a little longer nature and a little more in-depth analysis, as I'm going to do today. And the reason is, I think that as members of the CRPAC Nation, which means each one of you is a tremendous leader in your community. Let me reemphasize that. When you speak, people listen because you know more and you have greater insights and greater in-depth uh, in-depth analysis you're privy to, um, and scoops, frankly, than other people out there. So your family, your friends, your neighbors look to you for leadership, and I thank you for that. I thank you for that you provide that leadership. More than 100,000 of you now across the nation who are CRPAC Patriot leaders. And that's why an analysis like the one I'm about to do today, which I'll try to keep fairly short, is so vitally important. Um, the analysis involves our court system. Our court system. Let me start with a quote, and because it kind of puts in perspective everything else I'm going to say. Okay, it's a quote from Leonard Hand, one of my favorite jurists of all time. Never understand why he never made it to the Supreme Court. I think Franklin Roosevelt didn't like him, quite frankly, and that was that, because that was his time period. But as a tremendous man, I didn't agree with everything he said, obviously, but most things I thought he was right on target. And Leonard Hand said, I'm going to read you the quote: "The greatest threat to democracy occurs when instead of fighting for justice, the people are fighting against injustice." Let me read it to you again. The greatest threat to democracy occurs when instead of fighting for justice, the people are fighting against injustice. And that's where we are today in America. Our court system, and this is the most frightening thing I could ever say to you, has become totally corrupted. Our court system has become totally corrupted. The horror show being perpetrated against Donald Trump in court after court after court after court is prima facie evidence. Plus the court rulings in states where they've tried to wipe him off the ballot. Okay, the court ruling in Arizona, where with obvious political corruption in front of him, perpetrated by the Secretary of State, who then became governor, the court looked at that and gave it 10 minutes and said, no, forget about it. Let's move on. A corrupted court system, I'll put this in perspective for you. A corrupted court system means you have no chance at a functioning democracy. Political system gets corrupted. Eventually, you can overcome it. You get enough votes. Sometimes it takes a lot, but you can overcome it. You know, I talk about the 5% factor. For a Republican presidential candidate to win in America today, he has to have 5% or more lead over the Democrat. Otherwise, they wipe it out with their chicanery and their cheating, which is what we saw in 2020. But eventually, you get more than the 5%. That gets tougher and tougher for them to overcome it. But if the court system's corrupted, how do you overcome that? When you have a bunch of judges who are willing to totally distort, no, let me make that obliterate the law in order to carry water for fascist rulers, which is where, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's where we are today. You have a destruction of democracy that almost cannot be overcome, and we're getting very near that point now. We're getting very near that point now. Now let me just give you some background to give you some perspective on this. Some of you know I used to be the president of the Offshore Club. I have homes offshore, getting ready to buy another one in Nicaragua, a coffee plantation. My wife is Honduran. I have lived in Honduras. So, I've kind of made a study of Central American countries, the legendary banana republics, who, if they are banana republics, ours is now a rotten banana republic, okay? And if you look at those countries, it is when the court system became thoroughly corrupted that the country fell into the quagmire of fascism, okay? When the court system became corrupted. And it's when the court system was forced to get back in line that the countries have emerged as no longer banana republics. I'm sorry, there's some of them are simply no longer banana republics. Let's look back at I want to give you some examples because, and please keep in mind, what I'm telling you is what's happening in America today. And these examples emphasize the importance of a pristine court system rather than a thoroughly corrupted court system, which is what we have today, a court system where the American people are trying to fight injustice, okay? Let's go back to Colombia, okay? Escobar tried to take over politically for years and just couldn't pull it off. But when did he take over that country? When he went after the court system. When he started blowing up justices who were against his corruption and started installing justices who supported it. Look it up. Look it up. Escobar figured out, if I controlled the court system, nobody can fight me at any level. Because if they arrested him, he owned the judges. If anybody wanted to testify, the judges told him, Escobar, he's hombre se nombre Jose Gonzalez. He talked against you. Jose disappeared. Okay. Or the judges just ruled in Escobar's favor at every turn. So for him to take over Colombia, which he did, he had to have the court system, which he did. Okay. Okay, that's one example. In Honduras, the court system is totally corrupted. It doesn't matter who you elect, because the courts there are going to do as the regime says. Do as the regime says. Okay? You have a hopeless situation. In El Salvador, they had the gang members ran the country because the gang members owned the judges. Okay? One of the bravest things Bukele has done is when he came in and he wiped out a corrupt court system. That had to be his first step. Then he could arrest 10,000 horrifying gang members and clean up his country to the point where their crime rate is minuscule now. In El Salvador, great investment, by the way. If you're looking for somewhere to invest, it's a good investment, as long as Bukele stays alive. But it was when Bukele addressed their court system and cleaned it up that he was able to wipe out the gangland control of his country. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. In America now, we're going the exact opposite direction. Our courts become more and more and more corrupt. You can't trust any court you walk into now. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you the truth. If you doubt me, ask Donald Trump. You have in Nicaragua, Ortega's a dictator. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He is frankly, he's a benevolent dictator, which is why they have a lower crime rate than the United States. They have no drug culture. But one of the ways he has kept all that from happening is making sure that the judges in that country are not totally corrupted. Now, he may corrupt them a little bit, okay? But Any gangland corruption of his judges? Not going to happen. Any broad-scale political corruption of his judges? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Now, his judges obviously allowed him to put his opponents in the most recent election. They're under house arrest. But that, let's face it, what he did to his opponents, a couple weeks of house arrest, paled in comparison to what Joe Biden is doing to his opponent. Pales. He wants his in jail. He wants his in manacles and locked up behind bars. Okay? So those of you who say, but Ortega, he corrupted his election. Yeah, just like Joe Biden did in 2020. But Joe Biden has gone a lot further with abusing and corrupting the courts than Ortega has ever even thought of doing. Okay? So that's some perspective for you of the vital importance of the courts. If you have a corrupt court system, you have no chance at democracy. You have no chance at justice. None. It's gone. By definition, it's gone. Because those who are supposed to provide justice, protect justice, defend justice, are meting out injustice. Okay? And that brings us to Donald Trump. Okay? That brings us to Donald Trump. These trials this man is enduring they're the end of democracy in America if something is not turned around, okay? If the American people don't stand up and demand an end to this travesty, Donald Trump cannot campaign for the presidency because Joe Biden has conspired with judges to keep him in jail, and the Justice Department and the FBI. Okay? We know the charges are totally bogus. We now know that Jack Smith, that rabid dog. Look at the man's eyes. Would you want to? If he was your neighbor, you'd either buy a Doberman or move out. Okay, rabid dog Jack. We now know falsified the classified documents. He should be in jail, but do you think there's any judge that's going to do it? Think about it. Every judge so far has gone along with him 100%. That's how corrupt the system is now. He falsified the documents they seized at Mar-a-Lago, which never should have been seized in the first place, but they had a court order to do it. Keep that in mind. Look at the clown, Engoron, who sat up on the bench clowning, posturing. A man who goes to the gym, an old, disgusting-looking old man, goes to the gym and hits on young girls. He's a sick old man. He's just a sick old man. But there he is. He makes a decision before the trial started that Trump was guilty. He made that clear. That was his decision. A fair-minded judge would have said there's no evidence of wrongdoing. What is this case about? But not him. What in the hell's going on here? And he decides, this judge decides that Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million. Now, lesser mansions around it are selling for $200 million or more, but he made that decision. That's corruption. If you don't think it's corruption, I want you to look at the man's past. He never held a real job in his life. He's been a political hack judge appointed to make rulings that favored the fascists that put him into the position. If you doubt he's never held a real job, well, let me correct myself. He evidently drove a taxi while he was in law school. So you have a man making a major decision as to the value of real estate in West Palm Beach, a place he's probably never even been. He's making that decision, and his previous financial experience is making change when the passenger pays his fare. Does that sound like a fair and equitable judicial system to you? I don't think so. Let's look at the judge in the Georgia case. What's his name here? McAfee. Totally exercised no control over the case. I was going to say lost control. He never had control because he didn't want control. He let Fani Willis march in, take the seat, and start belittling everybody around, yelling and hollering, making outrageous statements, posturing, and then say, wait a minute, this is my court. You don't take it over. And so you say to yourself, well, why would he do that? Was he just scared of her? No, he loves her. Not the way Wade does, I hope. But he served for 4 years as her aide. Now, I want you to ask yourself a question. Would you tolerate Fani Willis for 4 years as your boss? With that arrogant, obnoxious behavior of his and hers, that entitled behavior? Only a little lickspittle, an obsequious little supine lickspittle, would have worked for that woman for 4 years and contributed to her campaigns over and over again. In other words, he is a fan of Fani's, and he should have said that from the beginning and declined to be the presiding judge. But he had an agenda. He had an agenda, and that was to protect Fani and rule in her favor. Then when the Wade business became disgusting, frankly, and irrefutable, he still ruled in her favor. He said, well, we'll leave it up to Fani what she wants to do about this. What? Yeah, I want to go to his court if I ever commit a crime. Well, Mr. Clues has been accused of first-degree murder, Your Honor. Well, we're going to leave it up to Mr. Clues as to what we should do about this. Okay? Corrupt legal system. A corrupt judicial system. Our system is as corrupt as it can be, and it gets worse by the day. And then you have this Merchan, I don't know how he pronounces his name, presiding over a case. He should have called a mistrial when Stormy Davis took the stand, had nothing to say about any bribery payment because she doesn't know. She doesn't even understand it. She's a porno queen. She writes porno scripts. They all do the same thing. What is she writing about? That's the first thing you think. But at any rate, let her get up there and be disgusting and vulgar, all to paint a nasty picture of Donald Trump. And when when Trump's lawyers said, "Look, we need a mistrial here. This is corrupt, attempting to corrupt this whole trial," and fill the jury with salacious material that's not relevant, and he denied the mistrial. He's denied almost every objection. As a matter of fact, he didn't just deny the mistrial; he attacked them because they should have objected more. Well, they objected from the beginning. Don't put her on the stand. You can't get a bigger objection than that. And he has overruled almost every objection they have raised. So you ask yourself, well, why is he so in love with Stormy and now this other, the liar whose name just went right through my mind and will come back, Trump's former lawyer? Well, he's in love with them because his daughter, and this is reason 10 times he's put a gag order on Trump. Now think about that. Trump is not allowed to speak out on his own behalf. 10 gag orders threatening with jail. Why? Because every time this judge rules against Trump, in this case, the judge's daughter makes more money. She is an advisor to groups who are using this trial to write the copy in their direct mail and in their fundraising phone calls, their solicitations against Trump, okay? Folks, that is patently evil. He knows every decision he makes against Trump helps his daughter, who's already made $10 million, make a couple million more. You think that's fair? You think that's just? You think that's what our jurisprudence system was supposed to be about? I don't think so, and I don't believe you as a CRPAC Nation leader believe that either, and I think we all need to spread the word. So there you have the total corruption of our entire legal system at every level. When the FBI goes in and they fail to disclose information they had, which is against the law, over and over the judge allows it. Think about it. Think about it. And they present bogus material, the judges now allow it. And let me finish by saying this. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court. To the Supreme Court. If you have any doubt, I want you to look back at COVID rulings. The politicians shredded the Constitution, took away freedom of speech, took away freedom of assembly, took away right to privacy, okay? It took away virtually every right we had. As a matter of fact, it was so blatant that when reporters asked the Murphy, the governor of New Jersey, well, what about the constitutional rights? He left. He left. I never gave the Bill of Rights a second thought. And he was speaking for every other governor and every other mayor, quite frankly. Okay? And our federal overseers. So the Supreme Court finally took a case saying, wait a minute, what about where the judges and the plaintiffs said, what about our constitutional rights? What about freedom of religion? They've shut our churches. All for this COVID hoax, which we now know was Mengele's Fauci perpetrated a hoax. I mean, we know it. If you don't believe it, start reviewing the literature. Start reviewing the literature, okay? Start reviewing what's happened to people who took the Fauci death shots. It's a pretty ugly story. But what did the Supreme Court do? Supreme Court pulled out a doctrine that they then codified into the ruling law of the land, compelling interest. And their ruling was, if the government has a compelling interest, it can override every article, every amendment, every codicil, every jot and tittle in the United States Constitution. Look it up. Look it up. That's where we are today. All the government has to say is compelling interest, and every right you have is gone thanks to the Roberts Court. So we have a big fight on our hands. If we're going to take back this country, we better realize that the greatest threat is the judiciary system. And that makes it all the more important for this guy to get in office and start appointing judges left and right. No, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Starting appointing judges right, okay? Because that's how badly our system is now at stake. So get out there. Fight for Trump. I'm going to make this blatant, folks. Fight for Trump while he's in that courtroom, even if he ends up in jail, which could well be. They're not done with him yet. They're going to come with more charges after these are done, bogus charges and corrupt judges, even if he's in jail. We got to get this man in office, because either we reform the court system or it continues to deform our democracy until there's simply nothing left whatsoever. So let's do this thing.